For this next movement, sun came out for it, we're going to be doing some hip liftoffs within deep rotational ranges. This requires us previously having visited the hip 90-90 video, so if you haven't been there, go there first, then come back to this. With the hip 90-90, we're going to take a more moderate positioning. There's a lot of videos where you see people at huge, really wide open 90-90 positions, which is again a little bit more traditional to the name, but we're going to choose something a little bit softer so that we have a little bit more of a chance of controlling it, and it's a nicer place to start from. That covers really a lot of ground. In this position, of course, I'm already in a comfortable position for myself. You may not be comfortable here yet. You want to make sure that your start position for this exercise is comfortable. In order to do that, especially if you feel your hip lifting or your body leaning, we're going to let ourselves take that movement from our torso. We're going to let ourselves lean over, deloading the movement on the side that we're emphasizing. As we then go to try to make this movement, these lift-offs, what we're going to do is make sure that our hip hasn't actually changed its position from our sits bone side, just from our torso side, opening up this angle. This exercise is meant to give us control at the limit of the muscle, so you may find yourself starting all the way down on your elbow to create some of these rotations and lifts rather than starting on your hand. You need enough space here to be able to control it for this to feel nothing, no stress, no opening, no stretching, no pinching, no nothing when we start, so that the movement can happen. When we come into this position, we're going to remind you that everything's really trying to happen at this hip crease right here. We shouldn't be feeling anything happening in our lower back or any other part of our body or spine. Within this movement, we're going to be doing an internal rotation lift off. So we're going to be hovering our foot off of the ground. Really, that hovering of our foot is us spinning this thigh inwards inside the hip joint. So be careful not to just really pull your toes up to the ceiling, and try to more create the hover rather than anything else. We do not care how high this goes. Honestly, at best, you should be only able to lift maybe a centimeter or two off the mat. As soon as you start to get more space, that means that we're going to want to get into deeper hip positions, so that we're really always working at the end range. If you can create a large movement, you're nowhere near your end range. So the hover is all we really need. We're going to lift and hold 1, lift and hold 2, maybe about 6 to 8 of these we're going to do on each side. A lot of times I see this kind of a thing happen where the pelvis wants to rock and lift, and we're again trying to just create this sensation coming right about from this corner in the hip. When we come out of that, feel free to use your hands for some help and switch over to the other side. In order to gradually build on our endurance, we could do all 3 of the movements that we're going to look at on the same side before switching, but for right now we're going to start with switching each side back and forth from each of the variations. Usually the first one takes a little bit of effort to figure out where you're lifting from. I started with a little bit of a hip shift there, but then you find your position and you continue to lock it in. For me, this side is a little bit more challenging, so I'm going to take myself out just a step so I can make sure that I can control it. Those holds and really squeezing and finding that control coming from here is really what we're here for. If you want to try to point your toes to make sure that your shin isn't doing the work for you, that also works. Do 3, 2, 1. Going to a point of a little bit of fatigue is really ideal in this exercise because we're trying to train the muscles on how to control the exercise at this depth, which is quite hard. It'll change little by little. Endurance will feel, longer. The fatigue point of the movement will feel further away from you. Just start wherever you're at, and little by little we add to it. I'm going to come back to this deeper position, especially on my next progression, but making sure that it's not coming from my hip rocking forward, just coming from unloading my torso. This variation, we're going to lift the whole shin parallel to the floor off of the mat. Again, just to hover an inch, a centimeter or so. We're going to try to see if we can lift both the knee and the foot at the same pace, not letting the knee come up, then the foot, but really both together. Hold for a second, lower to tap, hold for a second, lower to tap. Again, we could point our foot if we'd like. We should just be really focusing on lifting that shin. You shouldn't really feel much happening above your pelvis. You shouldn't really see anything happening other than the movement of your hip. I'm starting to get a little tired, so I'm gonna hit 3, 2, and 1. Take myself out of the position, switch to the other side. Again, give myself a lot of space, but not from the hip rocking forward, just from the torso. If you feel more comfortable not letting yourself kind of rock, you can also just move your hand further out rather than coming down onto your elbow. The further away it is from you, the easier that it gets. I'm using a couple other fingertips for a little bit of stability, but otherwise we shouldn't need our hand on the ground. This hip for me is super tired today. I did these yesterday, so I'm probably not going to do very many. I'm going to take a couple more rest breaks than you guys doing them at home. Just really try to make sure that we're keeping that movement parallel. Squeeze and hold for a second extra on each of those reps. On this being my tighter side, I get tired a little bit faster because I'm really working at the end of the limit that I have in this movement. The left side feels like it's a little bit more comfortable being here and comfortable engaging the muscles here. So I've got maybe one more. Exhausted really in that hip. And we're gonna switch back over to the left. Within this last variation, our goal is now to control that movement. We're gonna take a rotation of the hip within reference to where that joint space is. So this rotation is exclusively really coming from the hip joint, the part that it creases where your leg connects to your pelvis. In order to do this well, make sure that your knee doesn't straighten at all from where you start from. All of the movement and lift is really gonna come from right here. We're gonna take that nice juicy lean without it coming from our pelvis again. Start with the last movement, lift off of the mat, and then we're gonna pull that knee up and out towards our chest before we bring it back down and around, really reaching back to that start position. If you remember when I said that you shouldn't need to straighten your knee at all of the lift comes from your hip, this is where that's demonstrated. If I were to try to bring my leg around without pulling from my hip, you kind of see that foot want to get out of the way. Rather than that, we want to lift our leg so there's clearance for the foot. I maybe have 2 more on this side. Lift, peel, spin, return, lift, peel, spin. Again, you can think about keeping that foot nice and relaxed. Last one. You might feel some little clicks or cracks. I do. As we're working in the end range of our joint control, you're not going to know 100% where you are in space or how to really truly stabilize the movement. This is helping us learn that. And it's being done without load, so it's nice and safe. If you have hips that click, this is a great exercise to do to help us develop some more control around what's happening in that hip joint so that we're not snapping over different tendons or parts of the joint. Again, nice juicy lean. Returning to our last variation. Getting a little bit of stability with my upper body here, especially on the side that I'm so tired on. And making sure we really lift and then peel all the way back out to where we started from. Lift and pull. I'm gonna try for 3 more. My sits bone really wants to come off the mat. So this is my deepest variation I can do here. Can add a hand right around that hip joint to help remind us what's moving and where we're trying to control from. When you come out of the position, you should feel a bit sore around your hips. I definitely am and will be tomorrow from doing a couple rounds of these earlier and today. When you're starting with these movements, space it out. Maybe it's once every couple of days at most, if not just once a week, and gradually work into a little bit more familiarity with these movements, just like you wouldn't start squatting the first day and squat every single day. We want to give the muscles a little bit of a chance to catch up. This is not an opening exercise. The mobility version of the 90-90 can be done a bit more frequently because we're trying to create space rather than engage it. Hopefully this felt useful and helpful. And we're going to take it into some other progressions across some other videos.